Latinos are the new blacks. I'm going to share some things with you for you who are Latino. And the reason why you have to understand a couple of things about black history. First, let's start with this. I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to share a token playbook that Donald Trump used to get Latinos to vote against their best interests. Let's start with black history, not black American history, but black history. First, we were gods, then we were kings, then we were servants, then we were slaves, then we were inventors. The cotton gin, Hennessy, potato chips, during that time we couldn't get credit for it, so others got credit for it. Then we became conquerors during the civil rights movement. Now, blacks, specifically since slavery, black Americans are trendsetters. There's no place you can go in the world where you don't see hip hop influence or black culture, American culture influence. Now, Latinos, specifically Mexicans, first they were gods, then they were kings, then they were slaves, then they were servants. Being a migrant worker coming into the United States is a servant position. Now, Latinos, specifically Mexicans, are conquerors. Why is that important? It is because the elite white structure, specifically, you can see it very clearly with Donald Trump, fears what will happen with the Latino culture, specifically Mexicans in the United States. Here's the reason why. The difference between blacks in the United States, black Americans, and Mexicans, because the largest diaspora in America is Mexicans, 23%, is that in the black community, we all know this, drugs were put in the black community, caused fraction. The welfare system convinced the black mothers to allow the black fathers to leave. So the black father's not there. The largest percentage of incarceration are black males. So American structure, there is no country in the world where racism plays as important a part as in the United States. So with black culture, black Americans, the United States has been able to cause, overall, just history, fractions within the unit. Here's a principle. Where there is harmony, there is unity. Where there is unity, there is the ability to conquer. There is strength. What do you see in Latinos? It doesn't matter whether they're Colombian, Venezuelan, Cuban, but especially Mexicans. What do you see? You could have a home with 4 bedrooms, 4 families live in that house. They can work together. They can then buy the next house, fix the next house, buy the cul-de-sac. Then they have the whole street. The United States has not been able to fragment the Latino community, specifically Mexicans, like they were able to do with blacks. Mexicans don't live off welfare, so you're not able to separate and program that way. You can't inject drugs into the Mexican culture. That's just not permitted. They don't accept that. In the United States, think about it. Homeless population are primarily made up of what 2 races, blacks and whites. You don't see Mexican homeless people. You don't see Jewish homeless people. You don't see Asian homeless people. You don't see Indian homeless people. 2 reasons. First, their basement is where they came from. So only the best come here. Second, they work together. So the fragmentation that the United States have been able to implant into the black American culture is unbreakable. They were not able to do that with Mexicans. So Mexicans, because of their unity, because of their population, because of their family structure, the fear is them taking over. And if you miss the fact that that's the way elite white Americans think, you're going to miss this whole picture. That's the first. Here's the second. Since America, especially Donald Trump and his marketing team, could not fragment Mexican culture, Latino culture in that way they were able to do with blacks, how would you do it? There's something called from slavery called the token Negro. The token Negro, if you're black, the thing about being black, we know who our token Negroes are. It came from slavery. Initially, what the master would do, if you had 3 black men who could work together in harmony, unity with each other, with leadership skills, the master would promote one. That would cause dissension between them, a sense of competition between them. That spirit lasts to this day. That's why it's said and perceived that as a general rule, blacks don't work together. The master did not have to do that with the women because he could control the women slaves through their children. When that did not always work, you had the token Negro. The token Negro was in one of 2 positions. You either paid him a token, usually it was 25 cents. If a slave ran away, the token Negro would befriend those who knew the slave and then help the master find him, or actively participate in the master being able to go and find the slave and bring him back. The issue with being a token Negro is that once they got the master's favor, they can never go back to the group. But here's the other thing. if they went back to the group would find a way to kill them. The problem with that is that if you had more than one token Negro in the group, you couldn't kill him and put him away where he couldn't be found because there's another token Negro would sell what would happen. So the position of being a token Negro was a powerful position. That is picking someone who had the trait, paying them to be in a favorite position. Now, the other component of being a token Negro is a Negro would approach the master in exchange for doing something that was in the master's advantage. They would then get a favored position. Now, the reason why it's important for you to understand what I just shared with you is because what Donald Trump and his team did was, Latinos are not token Negroes, but they took the Token Playbook and they applied it to the Latino community. Example, our token Negro was the black dude behind Donald Trump with the Black Men for Trump sign. He don't represent anything about the power, education, professionalism of black men at all. Then what they did is that they interviewed him after the fact. His hair was fried, dyed, laid to the side. Where I'm from, New Orleans, we call it being crunchy black. It's like you take you and all the rest of y'all and go, and he talks about scripture and Donald Trump's that is the token Negro personified. Does not represent the excellence of being black. Here's what I want to share with you about skin color. I'm going to run through this as quickly as possible because I want to make this video as short as possible. And I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm going to show you the principle with you. Because this is how Donald Trump was able to do it, to get Latinos to vote. And their vote put their Latino brothers in a traumatic life event. Destroyed families in a way that it could not be done on their own. Skin complexion. This is through history. The complexion of the dominant world power at any time in history determined the perception of superiority of that complexion. World powers as it relates to Abraham's descendants, because that's how the Bible lists world powers. Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia. Each of them were black. Medo-Persians were brown skinned. The first white world power was Greece. During Jesus Christ's time, Greece was the world power. Their influence dominated. That's why the Bible from Matthew on is written in Greek. After Greece was Rome. That was the second world power that were white. Rome was not conquered by another world power. Rome disintegrated due to moral degradation. Now the world power is the Anglo-American dual world power. You have Britain and the United States. The dominance is white. That's why the complexion of the dominant world power determines the perception of superiority of that complexion. At one time, people wanted to be black because black represented creatorship. Creatorship was next to godship. They're trying to figure out to this day how they built the pyramids. Benjamin Franklin did not discover electricity. The Egyptians were experimenting with electricity back then. Black represented excellence, engineering, creatorship. Now let me get back to Latinos. What is it that Mexicans specifically, because you have to understand the thinking, represent in the United States? They're conquerors. How is that the case? Because their children see their parents, I'll use the example of migrants, see their parents working in the fields. Those children go to school, get their educations. They become doctors, lawyers, professionals, executives, CEOs. Why? Because they saw their parents as migrants. Therefore, when their parents get older, they want to take care of their parents. The same happened with blacks. Only black Americans have the resilience, the proof of resilience that we have. Of all the things that have happened to blacks in America, the black American dollar is a multi-billion-dollar revenue machine. Now, let me give you an example of token before I share with you how Donald Trump used Latinos as a token. During the DEI, what's the first company, not individual, company that volunteered itself to be a token for Donald Trump and his team? Target. DEI was not in effect yet. Target says, you know what, we'll do DEI. That is the token Negro slot. It's not whether the slot exists, it's who fills it at any given time in history. Who was next? Walmart. What happened to them? No matter how many times people underestimate the power of the black dollar, there's always another person that has to be made an example of it. Here's the thing. The 12 billion in change that Target lost was not just black money. It's blacks, whites, and Jews, Americans. Here's the thing about white Americans here. White Americans that are original white Americans, ancestors from here, are in 4 positions. They were actively involved in slavery, passively involved in slavery no matter where they lived. They were actively involved in abolishing slavery, or they were passively involved in abolishing slavery, as in the case of Frederick Douglass's mistress, who was teaching him and the other slave boys how to read, till his master said, don't come and teach him that. Whites in America have those 4 positions, and whites nowadays are simply not tolerating that. That's the power of the black dollar. So if blacks were able to get to achieve the things that we have achieved, I'm in Atlanta. There's over 10,000 black millionaires in Metro Atlanta. Metro Atlanta is the most powerful black metropolis in the United States. That's fear. The things they did with blacks, they're not able to do with Latinos. So how do you do that? You apply the Token Playbook. Let's get the Colombians, who are fair-skinned, the Venezuelans, make them feel that they're favorite, the Cubans, make them feel that they're favorite, and let's position them in a space that will offer them a favored position if they side with us to our advantage. That's what Donald Trump and his team did. But who were the persons that they had to be superior over? They had to be superior over their migrant brothers, their Mexican brothers. There's more that binds us than there is that separates us. And this thing about migrants coming here and being criminals and taking jobs and doing all of that's false. That's not the basis. There is no basis for that whatsoever. Migrants decades ago, generations ago, were invited to come here to help with agriculture. The fear is the unity that white America, the elite white Americans, see among the Latino community is a conquering dynamic. Their families are not fragmented. Their children are being born and raised with work ethic. They're going to school. That's why Donald Trump, the first term, he tried to undo DACA that Obama set up. And here's the thing about blacks in America. As blacks, we will share. We will share. We will just go make more of whatever we did before. That's simply the fact. And if you see the similarity, if you see the differences, you can learn how not to be put in the slot as Latino of being the token. Now, that's that. What can we do about it? Hopefully this video is still short. There's a principle called always be the buyer. One element of going through a traumatic life event is that once you've gone through the pain, isolation, the darkness, the toxicity of being in a traumatic life event, once you've been so low that you have to look up to see the bottom, the fears are no longer there. What do I mean by that? Prior, construction workers, people that work, Mexicans that work for a contractor, migrants, they would be told, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars. And then when the time came to be paid, it was a habit. They wouldn't pay them. What was the threat? Well, we'll just report you as being illegal, not having your papers, and then you'll be deported. That was leverage that was used against them. Can that leverage be used now? No, because they've already been deported. Once you've gone through something that you feared and you've survived through it, which they will survive through it, the leverage that was used against you before can no longer be used. There's only 3 ways to interact with anybody, any type of relationship: love, respect, and fear. Love is for your family, your friends. Respect, we give it in order to receive it, but when respect don't work, fear always does. Fear is what will happen to you if you don't respect me. The issue with fear, once you get to that point, the relationship, whatever it is severed. What has happened to Latinos in the United States, them being deported savagely, young guy being picked up on his way from getting a prescription to bring home to his wife who's pregnant, just being snatched off the street. That's similar to the slaves having to have your freedom papers when you walked outside. It's a repetition. Understand that. But here's where you have leverage. So you understand, always be the buyer. When you come back, and they will come back. And if you're Latino and someone was deported, share this with them. When they come back, never accept the dollar amount that whoever it is that wants to employ you offers you the first time. Don't do it. Because you're no longer selling your services and hope that you get paid. You're the buyer. What does that mean? Well, we'll pay you $11 an hour to work from sun up to sundown in our fields. Now, boss, I need 20. I can't pay you $20. That's too much. The price of food will go too high. Well, the price of food is already what? It's already high. I'll tell you, I'll pay you 15. Okay, we'll accept 15. But here's the thing, boss. The first time you don't pay us the $15 an hour that you agreed, all of us are going to leave, and this field will stay empty. That is what blacks did during the civil rights movement. Blacks, whites, and Jews. Nothing was given to us. You have to look at black history and look at that. So Latinos are the new blacks from the negative perspective, being used as a token, but you could also be the new blacks from the positive perspective of working together as a unit. Economically, when you go to a construction site, there's no person on the construction site that works like Mexicans. Everybody knows that. And you not getting paid what they said, leave. They can't threaten you with deporting you because they've already done it. Once you've crossed the bridge of where your fears are and you've gotten on the other side and survived it, the fear is no longer there. Understand that. Have you ever seen the way Mexicans particularly work with stone? That's genetic. I've never seen anyone that can work with stone the way they do. They've taken that creativity, that art, and to the form fields. If you look at these clips of how they work on the form, it's an art form the way they work. Passion, ingenuity. That is a duplicate of what America saw with blacks. The difference is that Latinos as a whole has been always perceived as being more unified. Always be the buyer. I'm going to end this here. Hopefully I haven't gone too much over 10 minutes, but I want to share that with you. Don't be the token, because those of you who unfortunately fell into the token slot, you fell into the token slot because you didn't know any better. Now that I've shared this with you, hopefully you know that the token Negro has been existing since slavery. You can deny it, but ignorance is expensive. Don't deny something from the past that the elite white America structure knows that they can use against you because you denied it. Venezuelans for Trump. Trump is behind the woman. Latinos for Trump. Latinos for Trump. And as soon as he got what he wanted, he dismissed them and caused, what's happening now is savage. Don't allow it to happen to you again. That's what I want to share. What binds us is closer than what separates us. And hopefully I've shared something with you that helps you to recover. Contact your Latino brother, your Mexican brother, and let's move forward from here. 4 years, this is horrible. And as always, I wish you all the blessings and success you deserve.